It was a cold and quiet night. The streets were empty, the wind howled through the trees, and the only sound was the crunch of snow beneath Jack's boots as he walked home. He pulled his coat tighter around his body, trying to shield himself from the biting cold. He hadn't eaten much all day, and now he was hungry. His stomach growled, but there was nothing he could do about it. Jack wasn't used to walking home in the dark, but tonight had been different. He had stayed late at work, and by the time he left, the streets were already covered in snow. He hadn't expected the snow to fall so quickly. His only thought was to get home as fast as possible and warm up. His apartment was only a few blocks away, but the cold made it feel like miles as Jack walked. He looked up at the sky, the moon barely visible behind the thick clouds. The streetlights flickered above him, casting long, eerie shadows on the snow-covered ground. He shivered not just from the cold, but from something else. There was something about tonight that felt off, like the air was thick with unspoken tension. He couldn't explain it, but he felt it deep in his bones. It wasn't just the weather, something felt different about this night. He turned a corner and suddenly stopped. Up ahead, standing in the shadows of a small alley, were two figures. At first he thought they might be people just like him, perhaps. A couple of kids out late or someone waiting for a friend. But as Jack drew closer, he realized there was something wrong. The figures weren't moving. They were just standing there, still and quiet. Jack's heart raced. He took another step forward, his boots crunching the snow. As he did, one of the figures slowly turned toward him. The moment their eyes met, Jack's stomach dropped. The twins were not normal. They weren't human. They were pale, with skin that almost seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Those eyes glowed faintly, an unnatural light that made Jack feel uneasy. He couldn't look away. The twins were identical, both wearing torn clothes that didn't seem to belong to this world. They were thin, trembling, and seemed cold, but not from the snow. Their faces were pale, and their lips were blue, as if they hadn't eaten in days. Jack wondered how they had ended up here, in this dark, empty street, looking so lost. "Are you all right?" Jack called out, his voice shaking slightly. He didn't know why he was asking. They clearly weren't all right. But something about their appearance made him feel like they needed help. The twins didn't respond at first. They just stood there, staring at him with those glowing eyes. Jack could feel his heart beating faster in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. He couldn't just walk away. They looked like they needed help, and for some strange reason, Jack couldn't bring himself to ignore them. He took a cautious step closer. "Hey, are you lost?" he asked again, hoping they would understand. The twins didn't speak, but one of them stepped forward, holding something in their hand. Jack blinked in confusion. The twin was holding a wallet. His wallet. Jack's eyes widened. He knew that wallet. It was the one he had dropped earlier that morning when he'd left for work. He had searched everywhere for it, but there was no way these strangers could have found it. How could they have it? The twin held out the wallet toward Jack, their trembling hand barely able to hold it. Jack didn't know what to do. He stood there, staring at the wallet, trying to understand what was happening. Was this a coincidence? Was he dreaming? He glanced at the other twin, who didn't move, but their eyes followed him, waiting for something. It was almost as if they were expecting Jack to take the wallet. Jack slowly reached out, still unsure if this was real. His hand brushed against the cool leather of the wallet, and the moment he touched it, the twin quickly let go, stepping back. Jack stood frozen, staring at the wallet in his hand. The twins didn't speak, but their eyes told him everything. They weren't here by accident. There was something else going on, something far bigger than a lost wallet. Why? Why are you giving this back to me? Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. The twins didn't answer, but their strange, glowing eyes watched him closely. They didn't seem dangerous, just scared. They were as confused and lost as he felt. Suddenly, one of the twins raised a hand and pointed toward Jack's chest. At first, Jack thought it was just a gesture, but then the twins' eyes locked on his, as if trying to communicate. It was then that Jack realized the truth. These weren't just strange people. They were something else. Something not from this world. Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine as he looked at them. He had always thought he was just an ordinary man, living an ordinary life. But now, standing in front of these alien figures, he realized he was part of something much bigger than he could ever have imagined. The night was not what it seemed, and these aliens, these twins, were just the beginning of something Jack couldn't yet understand. This part sets up the mystery and builds tension as, quote, writes tension as Jack encounters the twins, creating suspense for what is yet to come. The pacing is slow to keep the audience engaged, and the use of simple, clear language ensures accessibility to a wide audience. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. Jack stood frozen, the wallet still in his hand, unsure of what to make of the strange figures before him. His mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. How could these twins, these alien strangers, have his wallet? They didn't seem dangerous, but they certainly weren't human. Jack had no idea who they were or where they came from, but something deep inside told him this wasn't just a random encounter. The world as he knew it had changed in an instant. The twins remained silent, standing motionless, their strange glowing eyes never leaving Jack's face. Jack couldn't help but feel like they were studying him, trying to read his every thought. The air around them seemed to pulse with energy, as if something unseen was swirling just beneath the surface. Jack glanced around nervously, half expecting someone to walk by and think he was losing his mind. But the street remained empty, the cold wind howling like a lonely wolf. One of the twins, the one who had handed him the wallet, took a step back. Jack noticed their movements were slow and deliberate, almost too perfect, as if they were programmed to act in this way. He couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just strangers in the traditional sense. No, these beings were something entirely different. They didn't belong here. The question that kept repeating in Jack's mind was, why were they here? What did they want with him? The twin who had not spoken, the one who stood silently in the background, suddenly tilted its head. It was an odd gesture, almost animal-like, but Jack couldn't take his eyes off them. The movement made the twin look more vulnerable somehow, as if they were trying to figure out Jack, just as much as he was trying to figure them out. Where did you come from? Jack asked, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound brave. Are you from another planet? At first, neither of the twins moved. Then, the one who had been silent took a cautious step forward. Jack's heart skipped a beat. The figure didn't seem to be trying to scare him. If anything, the twin appeared more afraid of him than he was of them. The air between them seemed to crackle with something unspoken. The twin reached out slowly, almost hesitantly, and placed its cold hand on the wallet Jack was still holding. As their skin made contact, a strange warmth surged through Jack, but it wasn't coming from the twin. It felt like the warmth was coming from somewhere deep inside the wallet itself. He gasped and pulled his hand away. The twin seemed to understand and gently took the wallet from his grasp, holding it as though it was something precious, something far more important than Jack had ever realized. There was a long moment of silence. The other twin finally spoke, not in words, but through a strange hum that echoed in Jack's mind. The sound wasn't something Jack could hear with his ears, but it was more like a sensation, a vibration, that seemed to come from inside his skull. It was almost as if the twin was trying to communicate in a way that wasn't tied to language, but to pure thought. The hum was brief, but its meaning was clear. Jack felt a deep, unnatural pull in his chest as the twin's voice echoed in his mind, a message that made his blood run cold. We are not from here. We are lost. Help us, or we will not survive. Jack blinked, his eyes widening in disbelief. What did that mean? They weren't just strange travelers from another world. They were stranded. Lost. The twins didn't have any way to return. Home. They were far from their own world, a world Jack couldn't even begin to imagine. In that moment, everything around him seemed to shift. The cold street, the silent houses, the dark alley, they all felt so small, so insignificant compared to the weight of what these beings were carrying. They were in trouble. The twins were vulnerable, not just to Earth's cold and harsh environment, but to something even more dangerous. Jack's heart pounded. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to do. They were asking for help, but what could he do? He was just a regular guy, nothing special. He wasn't some hero who could save the day. He could barely keep his life together, and now he was supposed to help two aliens. But the message had been clear. They weren't just looking for a place to stay. They needed something from him, something only he could offer. Jack opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was caught in the intensity of the moment, unsure of how to respond. His mind raced for a solution, but all he could think of wouldn't leave him. Why me? Why was he, of all people, the one they turned to? The twins remained silent, their glowing eyes fixed on Jack. He could feel their eyes searching him, reading him. They were waiting for something, waiting for him to make the next move. Could he help them? Could he risk everything for beings from another world? The silence stretched on, and Jack's thoughts swirled in confusion. Then, the twin who had been silent raised a hand again, pointing toward Jack's chest. Jack stared at it, unsure of what the gesture meant. There was something almost desperate in the way the twin moved. It wasn't just a simple hand motion, it was a plea for help. And in that moment, Jack realized that the mysterious connection between him and these aliens wasn't just a coincidence. They hadn't come to him by chance. They had come to him for a reason. He was a part of their journey now, whether he liked it or not. "All right," Jack whispered, his voice shaking. "I'll help you." This part takes the story forward with increasing tension and mystery. Jack is now fully aware that he's involved in something beyond his understanding, and the twins' true need for help has become clearer. It deepens the story's mystery and leaves the audience wondering what Jack's next move will be. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments or additions. Asterisk, the cold wind howled around them, but it was almost as if the world had fallen completely, silent in the wake of what had just happened. Jack's heart was still racing, and his thoughts were spinning, but there was something in the air that felt different. The twins stood there, unmoving, watching him intently with their glowing eyes. The wallet was still clutched tightly in one of their hands, and Jack's gaze was locked on it. Something about it felt important. It wasn't just a wallet. Jack had known that from the moment the twin had handed it to him. The way they had given it back to him, almost reverently, spoke volumes. The cold leather of the wallet now felt heavy in his hands, as if it carried the weight of an entire universe. A universe that, up until now, had been hidden from him. He turned it over, his fingers brushing over the worn edges and the odd symbol engraved on the back. He hadn't noticed it before, but now it was impossible to ignore. It wasn't a symbol he recognized, nothing familiar at all. It looked almost like a star map, the lines etched with strange curves that seemed to swirl in a way that suggested movement. Like the symbol was alive, Jack's mind raced as he studied the strange design. Could this be something from their home planet? Could it hold the key to their mysterious arrival on Earth? Was it a map or something more important? He didn't have the answers, but he felt a growing sense that this wallet was somehow tied to the twins' journey, their mission, whatever it was. "Why is this so important?" Jack murmured aloud, almost to himself. The twin with the wallet suddenly lifted their head, locking eyes with Jack. It was as if they were hearing his thoughts, understanding his confusion. Without speaking, the twin held up one of their hands, palm open, as if asking for the wallet back. Jack hesitated for a moment, But something inside him told him this was the right thing to do. He carefully handed the wallet back to the twin, who took it gently, almost tenderly. The other twin watched them both, their glowing eyes flickering with what Jack could only describe as relief. Without a word, the twin who held the wallet raised it slowly to their chest, pressing it there for a brief moment. Then something unexpected happened. The wallet shimmered, its surface glowing with a soft light that spread across the fabric of the night, casting strange shadows on the snow-covered ground. Jack blinked in disbelief as the light intensified, swirling around, the twins bathing them in an ethereal glow. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the entire world had been waiting for this moment. Jack stood frozen, unable to move or speak, his breath catching in his throat. The twins were changing before his eyes. The air around them thickened, as though the very fabric of reality was bending. Jack felt a strange pressure in his head, like his thoughts were no longer his own. His mind seemed to be reaching out to something beyond his understanding. The wallet, the glowing symbol, and the twins, they were all connected in some way, and the weight of it hit Jack like a wave crashing. Against the shore, the twin holding the wallet slowly closed their eyes, their face a mask of concentration. As they did, Jack felt the sensation of being pulled deeper into their world. It was as if the wallet had become a bridge, a link between him and something greater. He could hear their thoughts, or at least the echo of them, in his mind. Faint, like a whisper, "You are the key, you hold the answer." Jack's heart skipped a beat. What did that mean? How could he possibly hold the answer to anything? He was just a regular guy. A man who had lost his wallet earlier that day and was now standing in the middle of a snow-covered street with two alien beings. What answer could he possibly have that was important enough to change the course of their fate? The twins were still standing there, their eyes closed, their faces serene but full of purpose. The world around them seemed to pulse with the energy of something ancient, something powerful. Jack felt a strange warmth in his chest, as though the wallet and everything it represented was awakening something inside him, something he hadn't even known was there. For a brief moment, Jack felt a connection to them, something beyond the physical world. It was as if he could see their home planet, a place far away, surrounded by stars and vast, unfamiliar landscapes. But it wasn't just a vision, it was a feeling, a deep understanding. The twins, these alien beings, weren't just lost travelers. They were part of a much larger story, one that Jack had somehow stumbled into. The twin with the wallet opened. Their eyes again, their gaze soft and almost apologetic. They slowly handed the wallet back to Jack, who took it without hesitation. The twins didn't speak a word, but their actions were enough. They were asking him to hold on to this symbol, this strange object that seemed to carry the weight of their entire journey. Jack looked down at the wallet in his hands, his mind racing. What did they expect him to do with it? Was it a map, a message? Or was it something even more profound? He wasn't sure, but there was no turning back now. The connection was made, and there was a sense of responsibility settling heavily on his shoulders. As Jack stared down at the wallet, something strange happened. The symbol on its surface seemed to shift, the lines changing, rearranging in a way that made the design feel alive. It was as if the wallet itself was responding to him, trying to communicate. Jack's fingers brushed against the surface, and the world around him seemed to blur for a moment. He gasped, pulling his hand back. In that fleeting instant, he knew this wasn't just an object. It was a key, and whatever door it opened was about to change everything. Jack stood there in the cold, his breath misting in the air, still holding the wallet. He felt the strange energy around him fade, but the tension didn't lift. Instead, it seemed to settle deep within him. The twins remained silent, their eyes locked on him with an intensity that made him feel like he was under a microscope. There was no escaping the feeling that they were watching his every move, waiting for him to decide what would happen next. The twin who had held the wallet first took a slow step back. Then the other followed. They seemed to be giving Jack space, but the weight of the situation was becoming harder to ignore. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to process everything that had happened. Aliens. His mind couldn't wrap around the idea. He had seen movies, read stories, but this was real, and there was no going back. The twins hadn't said much, but the telepathic hum in Jack's mind had made their intentions clear. They were lost, stranded on Earth, and they had no way of returning home. Jack had no idea how or why, but he was the one they had reached out to for help. It made no sense. He wasn't anyone special. He was just a guy who had lost his wallet and ended up standing face to face with two extraterrestrials. But there was something else in his gut, something that told him this was important, that he was part of something bigger. Jack shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his mind racing. The cold nipped at his skin, but it didn't seem to matter anymore. He could feel the weight of the wallet in his hands, a tangible reminder that he was holding something that wasn't just an ordinary object. It was a link to these aliens, to their world, to something far beyond his understanding. Jack didn't know what he was supposed to do with it, but the urgency in their eyes said that whatever it was, it needed to be done soon. The silence between them stretched on for what felt like forever. Jack glanced down at the wallet again, the strange symbol still glowing faintly on its surface. It was almost as if the wallet was waiting, urging him to act, to make a decision. He had no idea what kind of decision he was facing, but deep inside, he knew there was no turning back. The twins looked at each other, their eyes communicating silently. It was clear they weren't going to tell him everything, not yet. They were waiting for him to make the first move, to take the next step. Jack swallowed hard. He felt a rush of panic rise in his chest, but he fought it down. This wasn't the time for fear. These beings had come to him for a reason, and he couldn't just walk away. Finally, the twin who had first handed him the wallet took a step forward. Their gaze softened almost pleading, and Jack felt an overwhelming urge to help. But how? What could he do? He was just an ordinary guy. He didn't have any special skills, any special knowledge. He was completely out of his depth. The twin raised their hand again, not in a threatening gesture, but as if asking for something. Jack hesitated, but then, without thinking, he stepped forward and placed the wallet in their outstretched hand. The moment their fingers touched the wallet, the glow around them seemed to brighten, and Jack was filled with an almost overwhelming sense of connection, as if his very soul was linked with theirs. It was then that the twins spoke, though, not with their mouths. The words weren't spoken aloud. They filled his mind in a soft, gentle voice. "You are the key. We cannot go back without your help. The choice is yours." Jack's breath caught in his throat. He understood. They weren't just asking for help. They were entrusting him with something that would change the course of everything. Jack's hands shook slightly as he processed the words, but there was something in him, something deeper than fear, that pushed him forward. He didn't know what he was getting into, but the twins' plea, their desperation, tugged at his heart. For the first time in his life, Jack felt like he was on the verge of something huge. This wasn't just about the wallet anymore. This was about intergalactic survival. The twins were not just two lost beings. They were part of something far greater. The urgency in their eyes, their silent communication, it all pointed to one thing. They needed his help to survive. Jack's thoughts raced. Was he really ready for this? Could he handle the responsibility? The unknown? But there was no more time to second-guess himself. The choice had already been made the moment he picked up the wallet. There was no way to unmake it. Jack wasn't just a passive observer. He was now a participant in this otherworldly journey. His hands tightened around the wallet, and Jack's voice, though quiet, broke the silence. "I'll help you," he said. His voice steady despite the chaos inside. The twin who had held the wallet nodded slowly. the faintest trace of a smile crossing their lips. It wasn't a smile of joy, it was more like a relief, a recognition that something important had just happened. Something had shifted. For a moment, the world felt different, charged, as though the fabric of reality had bent in some small way. Jack could feel it, the weight of his decision, pressing down on him like a promise. The twins, these aliens, weren't just asking for his help, they were entrusting him with their fate. "We will show you what to do next," the twins said, their voice once again resonating in Jack's mind, clear and calm. And with that, the twins began to walk, not toward Jack, but toward a darkened alleyway further down the street. Jack hesitated for only a moment before following them. As he did, a part of him couldn't help but wonder if he was walking into something that would change his life forever. And yet, despite his uncertainty, there was no turning back. The night was far from over. The mystery was only beginning. Jack's footsteps echoed in the quiet street, the sound mingling with the soft whistle of the wind as he followed the twins down the dark alley. The snow beneath his boots crunched with each step, but everything felt distant now. The night had shifted. The cold, which had once seemed all-consuming, no longer mattered. His focus was entirely on the twins, walking ahead of him like shadows, moving in perfect synchronization. There was something unsettling about them, something he couldn't put his finger on. Maybe it was the way they moved, so deliberate, so precise, or perhaps it was the fact that they seemed unaffected by the biting cold that was freezing Jack's bones. Their skin shimmered faintly, glowing just enough to be noticeable in the dim light of the street lamps. They were unlike anything Jack had ever seen. As they walked, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into the unknown, a place where every decision would matter. These beings, these alien twins, had made it clear that they needed his help, but Jack had no idea what he was getting into. He had no idea what was coming. The alley they were entering grew narrower, the buildings on either side looming like silent giants. The snow had begun to fall harder, swirling around them. In the wind, Jack pulled his jacket tighter around him, trying to ward off the cold. But his mind was far more focused on the twins. What did they want from him? He thought. The twins came to a stop at the end of the alley, their eyes fixed on a darkened door in front of them. It was an old, weathered door, painted a dull gray, with no signs of life around it. No name, no address. Just a door, hidden in the shadows. Jack's heart skipped a beat. Why had they brought him here? The twin who had been holding the wallet turned to face Jack, their glowing eyes flickering. Without a word, they raised a hand and pointed toward the door. There was something about the gesture that felt commanding, like they were asking Jack to make the next move. Jack hesitated for a moment, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He could feel his heart racing, his pulse quickening in his throat. This was it. This was the point of no return. He was about to make a choice that could change everything. With a deep breath, Jack stepped forward, his feet crunching the snow beneath him. The twins watched him intently, their gaze never wavering. There was no turning back now. As Jack reached the door, he placed his hand on the cool, weathered surface. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, something strange occurred. The door shuddered, as if it were alive, and a low hum reverberated through the air. Jack felt it in his bones, the sound vibrating through the ground, up into his chest. It was as though the very building was waking up, reacting to his touch. The snow around them seemed to fall in slow motion, the air thickening, as if time itself had stretched. The twins stepped back, their faces a mix of anticipation and calm. They weren't surprised by the door's response, they had been waiting for it. This was part of the plan. But Jack? He stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what was happening. Had he triggered something? Had he just unlocked a door to another world? The humming grew louder, more intense. Then, the door slowly creaked open, revealing a dark hallway beyond. The light from the street lamps barely touched the space beyond the door, leaving everything shrouded in shadow. Jack glanced at the twins, but they didn't need to say anything. Their eyes told him everything he needed to know. This was where they had been leading him. This was the moment. Jack's mind raced as he considered the situation. He was standing at the threshold of something unknown, a place that felt like it belonged to a different reality, one far removed from the ordinary world he knew. There was no doubt now. The twins weren't just lost aliens. They were part of something much bigger, something far beyond his understanding. But why had they brought him here? The twin who had been silent finally spoke, but it wasn't with words. It was another hum of vibration that resonated deep in Jack's chest. The sound was more urgent now, as if they were trying to convey something important. They were asking him to enter, to step into the unknown, to join them on a journey that could change everything. Jack hesitated, his eyes darting from the door to the twins. He had made the choice to help them, but what did that mean? What was behind this door? He felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him like a heavy stone. But the twins didn't move, their eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. His gaze returned to the door. There was a strange warmth radiating from it now, almost inviting him in. The air around them seemed to shimmer, the edges of the dark doorway glowing with a faint, ethereal light. It was a place that felt both alien and familiar, like it was calling him. Without another moment of hesitation, Jack stepped forward and passed through the doorway. The instant he crossed the threshold, the world seemed to shift. The ground beneath his feet felt different, soft, as if he were no longer on Earth. The air was warmer, thick with a strange energy. The walls around him seemed to pulse with life, like the building itself was alive. The twins stepped in behind him, their footsteps silent. They had been here before, but Jack was just beginning his journey. And as he stood in the middle of the hallway, the door behind him closed softly, sealing them inside. Jack's mind raced with questions, but one thing was clear. He had crossed over. Whatever this place was, it was a long way from anything he could have ever imagined. And so the real journey had begun. As Jack stepped into the dimly lit hallway, the air around him seemed to grow heavier, thicker, with an almost electric energy. The walls, though old and weathered, seemed to pulse with life, the faint glow of unseen lights casting long shadows. On the floor, the strange warmth that had greeted him when he passed through the door had quickly turned to an unsettling chill that crawled up his spine. He looked around, his heart pounding in his chest. The hallway stretched out before him, empty and quiet, save for the soft sound of the twins' footsteps behind him. Their presence was now a constant hum in the back of his mind. The twins hadn't spoken, but Jack could feel the weight of their silence, as if they were waiting for him to take the next step, waiting for him to understand what was going on. But how could he understand? He didn't even know where he was, or how he'd gotten here. The twins moved gracefully, their steps barely making a sound on the smooth floor. They looked just as calm as ever, as if walking into a strange, hidden building at midnight was nothing out of the ordinary. But for Jack, every second felt like an eternity. His thoughts raced, spinning out of control. What had he just walked into? Where are we? Jack finally managed to ask, his voice low and shaky. His question echoed down the hallway, but there was no immediate answer. The twins didn't speak, only continued walking ahead. Jack didn't know if they could even understand him, but the urge to know more, to understand what was happening, pushed him forward. Suddenly, one of the twins stopped. It wasn't an abrupt movement, more like a shift in energy, like a breath being held in anticipation. The twin turned toward Jack, their glowing eyes locking onto his. For the first time, there was a shift in the air, a noticeable change. It was as if the world around them had tilted, and Jack could feel it deep within him. His chest tightened, a sense of something important about to unfold. Without a word, The twin held out their hand, palm up, as if asking Jack to come closer. Jack hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. As he did, the twin moved aside, revealing what lay ahead. Before him stood a massive door, unlike anything he had seen before. It was ornate, with symbols etched into its surface, symbols that seemed to glow with a faint light. The air around the door shimmered, like the space itself was distorting, twisting in response to their presence. Jack felt an inexplicable pull toward it, an instinctive urge to open it and see what lay beyond. As Jack reached out to touch the door, the second twin stepped forward, standing beside him. Their eyes were locked on the symbols, their expression unreadable. For a long moment, the room was silent, the only sound being the soft hum of the building around them. Then, in a voice that was barely more than a whisper, the twin spoke, not through words, but through Jack's mind. "This is where we are from. This is our home." Jack's breath caught in his throat. He had known, deep down, that these twins were from somewhere far beyond Earth, but hearing it spoken aloud or thought aloud hit him like a wave. He wasn't just in some abandoned building or hidden part of the city. He was in their world, or at least a piece of it. He turned to the twins, searching their faces for answers. "What do you mean? Is this your home world?" he asked, his voice cracking with confusion. The words didn't feel like they belonged to him. They felt more like the expression of his growing disbelief. The twin who had spoken earlier nodded slowly, their face still calm, but now carrying a deep sadness. They gestured toward the symbols on the door. "We were once from here," they thought to Jack, their presence in his mind almost tangible. "But now we are not. We have lost everything." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "What happened to you?" he asked, his voice softer now, as if he understood the weight of their loss. The twin looked at the door, their expression distant, as if recalling a painful memory. The silence stretched out, and for a moment, Jack wondered if they would say anything more. But then, with a deep breath, the twin spoke again, this time more clearly. "Though still in the way of thought, we were part of a great civilization, far beyond Earth's reach. We were explorers, travelers across the stars. But something happened. Something terrible. Our home was destroyed." Jack's mind raced as he processed the words. A civilization destroyed? He couldn't even begin to imagine what that must have been like. What kind of force could have wiped out an entire world? The sadness in the twins' eyes was palpable, and Jack could sense the weight of their grief. They had lost everything: friends, family, their very world. And now they were stranded on Earth, light years away from their home. The second twin finally spoke, their voice just as quiet, but filled with an undeniable urgency. "We are the last, the only survivors. Our mission is to find a way to return, but we cannot do it alone. We need your help, Jack." Jack froze, his mind reeling. They weren't just asking for a favor, they were asking for his help to save them, to help them return to a world that no longer existed. The gravity of their situation hit him all at once. These twins, these beings who seemed so alien to him, weren't just strangers from another planet. They were survivors, wandering through the remnants of their lost civilization. Jack's gaze moved back to the door, now glowing brighter, the symbols pulsating as if alive. The door seemed to be calling to him, urging him forward, towards something unknown. Jack felt a shiver run through him. He had no idea how he could help them, no idea what this mission entailed. But one thing was certain: he wasn't just an ordinary man anymore. He was now part of something far bigger than he could have ever imagined. With a deep breath, Jack nodded. "I'll help you," he said, his voice steady but filled with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The twins exchanged a silent look, and for the first time, Jack saw something else in their eyes. Hope. Jack's heartbeat echoed in his ears. As he stood before the glowing door, a flood of questions racing through his mind. The twins were silent, watching him with an intensity that felt both comforting and unsettling. He had promised to help them. He had no idea how or why he had made that decision, but now, standing here with the weight of their past and their hopes pressing down on him, he knew there was no turning back. The door seemed to pulse with a life of its own, each beat of light emanating like the heartbeat of a living creature. The symbols on it shifted in subtle patterns, glowing brighter with each passing second, as though they were waiting for Jack to make his move. The twins had explained their plight, the destruction of their world, their mission to find a way home, but none of it made sense to Jack. How could he help? He was just a regular guy who had stumbled into an extraordinary situation. There had to be a reason why they chose him, but what was it? The second twin, who had been silent most of the time, finally stepped forward, their eyes not glowing with that usual faint light, but a deeper, more serious intensity. Their voice, though soft, felt like it reverberated in Jack's bones. The door is open now. But it is not just a door to our home, Jack. It is a door to something else, something that you must understand before you can truly help us. Jack's confusion deepened. What could they mean? He had followed them here, promised to help them find a way home. But now it seemed like there was more to this than he had ever imagined. His hands clenched around the wallet they had given him. The symbol was still faintly glowing, but it seemed to pulse with more urgency now, almost like it was alive. The twin gestured toward the door, their hand trembling slightly. Jack's gaze followed, but before he could move, the first twin, the one who had spoken to him the most, spoke again, their words resonating deeply inside his mind. You are not just a helper, Jack. You are a key. This door can only open for you, but it is more than that. You are the one who must lead us to the next stage. But be warned, the path ahead is not what you think. This door leads not just to where we came from, but to where we are going. And where we are going, you might not be ready for. Jack's breath caught in his throat. What do you mean? What's on the other side? He asked, his voice almost a whisper, filled with equal parts fear and curiosity. His mind couldn't grasp the full meaning of their words, but he could feel the gravity of the situation settling deep within him. The second twin stepped closer, their face now expressionless. Yet there was a flicker of something in their eyes, something Jack could only describe as determination, mixed with a touch of regret. What lies beyond this door is not our home, not a place we can return to. It is the place where all of our mistakes have led us. It is the place where we will find the answers to the question you have been asking all along. Why you? Why have you been chosen? Jack felt his legs grow weak, the weight of their words sinking in. They hadn't just been stranded here, they had been searching, and somehow he had become part of their search. But what did they mean? By mistakes? What were they really asking of him? He wasn't ready for any of this. He was just a man who wanted to go home after a long day. Now he was standing in front of a glowing, otherworldly door, with two alien twins who claimed he was the key to something much larger than he could ever imagine. The first twin took a step forward, their voice once again filling Jack's mind, calming but still urgent. Jack, the world we came from. It was not just a home, it was a beacon. A place where knowledge was shared among the stars. But in our desire to explore, we made a fatal mistake. We unleashed something that destroyed our world, and now it is seeking to destroy everything we once built. Jack's mind spun. What were they saying? Something they had unleashed? The weight of the truth was becoming unbearable. But there was one thing Jack knew for sure. These twins were not just lost travelers. They were survivors of something far beyond human understanding. And they were now looking to him for answers. But could he really help them? Was he even capable of understanding what they were asking of him? Without warning, the light around the door intensified, casting long shadows across the hallway. Jack looked up, his pulse racing. The door was shifting, its surface rippling like the surface of water disturbed by a stone. The second twin spoke. Again, their voice firm, almost commanding. The key is not the door. You are the key. And once we pass through, you will understand everything. You must come with us, Jack. There is no turning back. Are you ready to face the truth? Jack stood frozen, his mind still trying to process the enormity of their words. The question lingered in the air, unanswered. The door before him was no longer just a doorway to another place. It was a threshold to something far more dangerous, far more significant. The twins needed him. But was he ready to face whatever lay beyond? He could feel it deep within him, the pull to step forward, to see what was waiting on the other side. But he hesitated. Could he handle it? What if he wasn't the key they thought he was? What if he was walking into something that he couldn't escape from? The moment stretched, and the twins waited, their silent gazes urging him forward. You must decide now, the first twin said softly. The choice is yours. The air grew thicker around Jack as the door shimmered, beckoning him forward. His heart raced. What would he do? With a final, shaky breath, Jack stepped forward, placing his hand against the door. The twins' eyes never left him, their hope and desperation evident. The door responded, glowing brighter, more intensely. And with a loud, resonating hum, the door swung open, revealing what lay beyond.